Good day, my name is André Roux. I'm linked attached to the University of Stellenbosch Business School where I lecture economics as well as future studies. On the 22nd of June, the Business School hosted a 3-hour workshop, partly an interactive workshop, but based on looking at the future of South Africa. So part of the output of this workshop was having the delegates do their own scenario exercises. The workshop started off by having a look at what the future is, some fundamental principles guiding the way we should or should not think about the future. One of the most important issues here is no one can predict the future. Nonetheless, by applying tools such as scenarios, we can get a better understanding of how the future may unfold in various ways. So after having a look at some of the principles of how to think about the future, and then taking the delegates through a very quick overview of how to conduct a scenario exercise, we then discussed some fundamental global realities or megatrends and touched on a few tipping points for South Africa. The last hour and a quarter or so of the workshop we handed over to the delegates. They were divided into 3 groups, and each group had just over an hour to come up with a framework, a very basic broad framework of a number of scenarios. The one group was asked to look at the future of the world in 2025, the others looked at the future of South Africa in 2025. Now, bearing in mind that it was a very short period of time to do this, and normally a decent scenario exercise could take days, if not weeks, I think that the outputs achieved within barely an hour were more than satisfactory. It transpired that when looking at the future of the world, that there are possibly 2 major key uncertainties which would then guide and give us a framework for a number of scenarios. The one had to do with the very nature of the way people think, and the group decided that on the one extreme, people might continue to think radically, in the sense of things such as becoming more nationalistic, more protectionistic, as opposed to the opposite possibility, and that's where you have a more responsible way of thinking, where sustainability becomes a big issue, where people are more empowered and probably and hopefully more moderate in their way of thinking. That was the one issue, if you like, giving us a framework for scenarios for the world. The other big one was the role of technology. And again, one could range here from more and more people all over the world engaging in and being able to use technology, high-level technology, as a growth spurt, as a growth motivator, as opposed to many people still not being able to engage and use this kind of technology. So to summarize the world thinking, the world scenarios, arguably the most ideal situation would be where you have the use of high-level tech and at the same time people use it in a responsible, sustainable, empowered fashion. That would be, I suppose, first prize. A less happy scenario would be where people remain radical in their thinking and at the same time technology not all that conducive for economic growth. Turning to the thinking about South Africa in the year 2025, it turns out, perhaps not surprisingly, that one of the most important key uncertainties has to do with the behavior of leadership. One must stress here, leadership is not just confined to political leadership, both government and corporate and civil society leadership. 2 polar possibilities would be, on the one hand, accountable leadership versus what we call politely rent-seeking behavior, which is not what you're aiming for. And then the other, probably most important issue having a bearing on the country's future would be the level and the speed and the sustainability of economic growth. So the one extreme would be economic growth muddling along pretty much where it is today, 2% or less, as opposed to achieving a 6% growth rate. Now again, ideally one would like a scenario where leadership at all levels is accountable and you get a 6% growth rate. And in fact, the two would probably feed upon each other in a positive way. Countering that, the least desirable scenario would be low growth, sluggish growth, and rent-seeking behavior that is just simply almost guaranteeing ongoing misery, poverty, unemployment, and unhappiness. So to summarize, I feel that we achieved a great deal in barely 3 hours. I think the group of the delegates, roughly 25 of them, I think that they found it useful to at least go through the way we think about scenarios, and possibly and hopefully they've been equipped with the ability to apply the technique in their own contexts. So 3 hours, we did a great deal, and the enthusiasm shown by the group was also gratifying.